St. Paul, the Fan.
Shall we begin?
Football Feast.
Holy Toledo!
Oh, well.
Fire away.
You homer!
Today, the first chance he had to take a vacation, Friday, gone. Just vapor. Gone. I am Paul Charch, and that is the laugh.
Vocal maintenance becomes mental maintenance,
Yeah,
I think.
Look, I get it.
He
Chad
cleaned
Greenway,
out his
hello?
locker at the
Yes.
facility yesterday. And, it was sad.
What is that? Tell me what is clean out the locker day like?
Yeah, so first of all, the vocal maintenance day is an elite take. I feel like if I did anything permanently on the radio, I'd be taking many of those.
Yes, because who's going to argue with that?
Yeah, you got to keep the vocals tight,
right?
And locker clean out day. It's an interesting day because a lot of times, the roster torn in the NFL is, it's a notorious thing. And you're talking 30 to 40% almost every year now.
Right. A third of the guys in that locker room with you will literally never lay eyes on again.
Yeah. And it's funny because I go back through, if you look at team rosters back in 06, 07, 08, many moons ago, you're like, I forgot I played with that guy.
Right.
You're like, who's that guy?
Yeah.
You can't even remember. And then, I did have two teammates that went for a decade, which is really unique.
That is unique.
Robinson and Peterson, Adrian.
Yeah.
And it was, so you look back, it's like, man, and then you think about how fast that 10 years went because just, it's in season, it's just cycling through year after year after year. But roster or locker room cleanout day is interesting because usually you have GM coaches kind of walking through, hanging around. You're kind of talking to everybody. You know who's for sure not going to be back.
I bet.
Then you have the group who might be back, might be cut, might be let go because of contract. And then you have the group that's just going to be there. So, I was fortunate enough to be usually that person to be, hey, I'm going to be back. So my offseason is going to start here in a few weeks. But it's a sad time because a lot of relationships you'll literally have never ran across those guys again from that moment. And a lot of times you spend a lot of good times, linebackers with me, you do everything together for 5.5, 6 months. I kind of liken it to in a very loose way, in a military situation, like when you go overseas maybe with somebody, or you're going to train with them or boot camp with them, and you spend this large amount of time with somebody, and you go through all these trials and tribulations and ups and downs. You kind of build that bond that's different than just a casual friend, and then all of a sudden, poof, life just moves on, and somebody gets let go, and it's different. So it's wild.
Do you exchange phone numbers? Do you have all that stuff? I mean,
you can do that in 06. In 06, it was different than it is now. But yeah, you always stayed in touch. I mean, that's the best thing now with social media. Quite honestly, like everybody says, it's the best thing when Facebook came about back in the day. It's I can see and talk to people I haven't seen for years. Yeah. And now with social media, Edmund Robinson's a great name to pull. He's a linebacker.
Edmund Robinson.
Linebacker here.
Did he play here?
He played here for
2015-ish, maybe.
Okay.
Yep, 14, 15, a phenomenal. He's actually a really nice athlete, and has done some stuff in the other football leagues. But great guy. We stay really connected on social media for whatever reason. We always had a great connection here.
Yeah,
completely different backgrounds and just where life has taken us, but stay connected. So social media is great for that.
He's in jail.
No.
Running a very profitable distillery.
He is definitely
totally
not.
different.
He is the opposite of that.
Really?
Yeah,
okay.
yes.
All right. Okay. I don't remember him. I don't remember anything about him.
Well, he went to like Newberry. He was a late round pick, I think.
Newberry?
Exactly. Good pull.
What is Newberry?
I think it's down in Georgia.
I have no idea where it is. But the bit is I think Zimmer loved him, and maybe you can speak to that. But he had an opportunity those last couple of years to potentially show some talent. He was a big special team stud, so it was like Ed. And we used to do the bit, here's to you, Edmund Robinson. Zimmer loves you more than you could know. So we were rooting for him. It didn't work out here, unfortunately.
So he spent some time in the XFL, the new revamped XFL.
Okay. All right.
So he's still technically playing, but we get on the Edmund Robinson rant, but Edmund walked in and you're like, that's what you're supposed to look like.
Really?
Yeah.
Was he just ripped?
Walks in and like, I'm like in my 10th year and I'm like, this is not what you're supposed to look like. You're supposed to look like Edmund, 6'4", long, lean, athletic, and just can fly and really a great human being and was a great part of the locker room. So those are the guys though that you miss, that you'd love to go have a coffee with and catch up with, and the alumni, Tom West now run the Alumni Association with Tracy over there, and they've done a good job of bringing folks back around. And so it's fun for me to come across some of these guys that normally would never cross paths with again.
All right, one more question on locker cleanout day. Are there like exit interviews?
Yes.
I mean, do you and does everybody get one? Does
it depends on
53 guys getting exit interviews, and with who?
Depends on where your lot is on the team. So if you are a pending free agent, you're required to meet with. I did air quotes for those listening. To go to meet with the GM. So at the time for me it was Rick Spielman. You'd meet with Rick. You'd meet with head coach. And
do they tell you right then if you're a pending free agent? Do they give you the courtesy of saying you're not coming back? Yeah,
in some cases they kind of allude to where they're at with you, not like in a harsh way, but just like, hey, it might be like, hey, we're going to try to find a way to get this done.
Yeah.
Whereas if it's a guy that we want to get back, it's like, hey, we're going to get this thing done. Just the tone of the conversation.
How formal is that?
Pretty informal. Rick was really good, I thought. I mean, Rick was, as GMs go, from my experiences and just kind of knowing sports, I thought he was really good. He kind of blended that business and formal with some informality, and he always knew a lot about you and your background, so we always had a great conversation. Of course, I spent a lot of time with him, so we had a great relationship, and I thought he handled that pretty well. Very professional, and I think that's why he stuck around so long, is he just handled his business well, and he was well respected, and I think he always talked around the obvious because he couldn't allude to what direction they wanted to go. And that's why those conversations kind of become, we want to try to find a way to get this done, which really means you're probably not going to come back.
Okay.
Then you have to read between the lines.
For you as a veteran, when you're you're under contract for the next year and you have your exit interview, either is the coach involved or is it just GM?
Yeah, I come back, if that's me and I'm coming back, into a guaranteed situation or whatever, I'm coming back in like the next week. I'll be like, hey, I'll be in town. I'll come in next week, and it'll be, the mood of the building is like, if you could just like, on the beach somewhere, and everybody's casual, and everybody's wearing hoodies and sweatpants.
Right. Everybody's out of their suits.
Everybody's, we're watching the other playoff teams if you're already beat out or whatever, and you kind of come in there and you get to have a sit down with the crew and just kind of. For me, it was always like, where are we going to go? Like, what's the draft? I remember the Ponder draft year was like, that was a big one because I was kind of right in prime and I just signed a new deal and I was like, what's the plan here? Like, I want to have a vision and a plan. If you're paying me to be a defensive leader and I'm here for the next 5 years, what's this look like? And not that you're making decisions, but you're definitely part of that conversation. And I think that's it's fun to be in that position because you got a little bit of leverage and you can actually be part of not decision making process, but kind of in the conversation at least.
Yeah, fun before the draft. Christian
right,
Ponder.
and then right. Yeah, so did they tell you in your exit interview? Okay, our plan is we're going to take a feeble-armed quarterback who really doesn't have the requisite arm talent to be an NFL player.
Well, and I think in that situation, it was kind of portrayed to me, and without naming names, because they certainly didn't name names. They didn't want that out, obviously.
Yeah.
But it was about we have a model to how we want to draft. We think we have a formula. Was actually the word used to identify a guy who is going to be a fit for us and what we need. And I think that was because of the idea. Obviously Adrian's getting a million touches. can we go find that sort of guy who, for lack of a better word, game manager, can make all the throws, can manage the team, and can hand the ball off to Adrian, and we can kind of build it around that, which at the time made a ton of sense. And then, when we saw him come into practice and Christian gets drafted, I think that, raised a lot of eyebrows and with that situation. But then again, you never want to write the kid off. You have no idea.
No, he's your guy now.
Yeah, and then and again, people forget about, was it 2012 when he took us on a nice run and we make the playoffs and and he gets injured, because I think if he's healthy, I think we win.
You might have won that game in Green Bay.
It's always to say coin flip, you can go to Lambeau and win in the playoffs, but the reality was we just pounded them pretty good at home.
The week before,
so we had the momentum. It was the week before we played them back to back.
That was the big Adrian game.
Yeah, and that was
199, and he needed
206 or something.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that was, I think, the methodology of bringing him in, and again, it didn't work out. But again, you bring in a kid, at least you bring in a guy like Ponder at that situation, because Rick knew how to draft in a lot of ways, good character, and kind of coming off in 05 the boat deal. Everybody knows about that, and I came in 06, and then I feel like he really turned the corner on. We have to identify character as well, and I thought he did a good job from the locker room in 06 when I came in. There were some characters in there, and stories that absolutely cannot be told on radio. And you start to kind of feel the locker room change and shift with, hey, we can go get high character and high ability players and win that way, or at least be competitive that way. And that's what it felt like it changed with Rick's tenure.
2 more things for this segment for you. Number one, how insane was that Green Bay game with Adrian Peterson, week 17, win to get into the playoffs, right? And Adrian needs 206 to set the all-time single-season rushing record. And 206 rushing. And going into the game, we're like, yeah, he's got a coin flip chance. I'm getting 206.
Yeah, I mean
it was, the run he was on that year was staggering. And I think you become numb to it. Yes.
I think let's talk about the folks in Kansas City right now. You become numb to Mahomes and his ability because you just see it all the time. I was his teammate for 10 years.
Yeah.
So you see every up and down and every decision he makes and in practice and in the game, and then you see him go and you're like, yeah. I mean, we've seen that every time. Now, the opposite of first impression on a player with Ponder is Adrian, because when Adrian got the ball in 07 in our first minicamp handoff, his first handoff in minicamp, nobody had seen that before.
Even there, first
even
handoff.
there, it's very rare in the NFL. That you see something like, I've never seen that before.
Right.
I played in the Big Ten, and I just been, I was in the NFL for 1 year, so I hadn't seen a lot of NFL. I was obviously injured, so a lot of new things for me as well. But even the other vets, like Ben Lieber and these other vets, were like, that's just different. and the tenacity at which he ran, it was funny that your eyes can start to now a month in, you're like, yeah, we've seen that a bunch now. Then 10 years later, you're like, yeah, we actually expect him to do that.
Right.
So that year specifically, though, we just all wanted him to get the record. Once we knew the game was kind of in tone, I forget how the flow of that game went, but I know that we were all we cared about was him getting that record.
Really?
And we were so disappointed because I think he had some opportunities at the end of the game.
Well, he got his most carries of the season.
How many carries did he get in the game?
But
34.
I thought at the end, though, but it could have been 35 or 36, and we could have got the record. I mean, quit being soft at this point, Adrian.
Well, it was the walk. It wasn't. It was the walk off from. Was it Blair? Was it Blair's rookie seat? Or was it Long?
Too many years. I mean, I can't remember that.
It may have been Blair. No, maybe not. Anyway, he gets that long run. And it's almost like it was like either get into the end zone and ice the record, or based on how the game was going, that was it. And he just fell short. And I think at that point they had to kick it and walk off.
Even greatness falls short sometimes.
That was
Packers, just an incredible year, though.
The other part of that's amazing. The Packers know what the plan is. Ponder's not a threat. And they know they're going to get Adrian Peterson for 30 carries. And they still gave up 196 or whatever.
What stinks is the record starts over. Now you have a playoff. You'd have to be a playoff record the next week. So,
but you had to win that Final Four to get into. You had that crazy game, or weird game, I should say, down at Houston. That was an incredible stretch for you guys.
That was probably, thinking, the 08 stretch with Farrat, we'd rattle off 8 or 9. Mm-hmm. That stretch to get into the playoffs was maybe some of the most fun football we played over that stretch, was because you knew you had what you had to do. The Vikings were in the same situation this year. 4 games left. And you basically had to win out to guarantee yourself a spot. And, this one went differently this year. But then I just remember the attention to detail and the energy we came with that season. of that last month was just different, and our ability to focus and get in. And of course, when you have a defense that's humming and a running game that was humming like Adrian, it becomes easier because you control the game. And that was the biggest thing, is we could control every game, even on the road, and that was the biggest difference maker for that team.
And with Ponder missing that playoff game, you didn't have a chance to see him fail maybe there. I'm not rooting for failure here, but part of the problem was, I think, we all sat there and went, well, if Ponder had played, and I think we dragged on his career a little too long.
What if playoff Ponder was a thing, though?
But maybe
that we never got to see.
I don't know. Maybe it would have been great.
And I think it's disappointing on several levels, but nobody more disappointed than him, because at that point he had put us, no matter what you want to say, he had put us in that position.
Yeah.
And or helped put us in that position, and he deserved that opportunity. And that's the injury stunk, and we're like, you got to find a way. And just couldn't get it done. And that was disappointing, because I think if he plays that game, what if you go there and win that game? Your career probably turns out potentially different.
And why? I'm still bitter that we didn't just run Joe Webb. The one thing Joe Webb could really do was run the ball, and I'd put him on 15 runs in that game.
Now, you never want to throw everything on a coaching staff, but you want, how do you not see this?
Right.
And then again, we watched Niners quarterback the next week. Kaepernick, thank you. I don't know, I couldn't remember his name. Do the exact. He's like they're like the exact player. We're like, wait a second.
Was that his 150 game?
We have that guy.
Right.
He started the game.
Yes, we could have done that to the Packers.
Here we are.
Frustrating. When we come back, I want to ask you about this Kansas City game.
Yeah,
could be the coldest game played.
Love it.
Since not U.S. Bank Stadium, the bank.
The bank, yeah.
The TCF.
How cold is it going to get in Kansas?
Well, they're saying kickoff could be 0, wind chills minus 30.
Yeah, the wind chill's the key.
Good for them.
Yeah.
I'll be sitting, snuggling in my living room watching that game, nice and warm and toasty.
Yeah. So, and you and I have recapped. We've talked about that game a few times, but I always think it's fun. People love weather games. We've got 2 big weather games coming.
Yeah.
One cold, one snow.
Yep.
So we'll talk a little bit about that when we come back with
Let
Chad
me give them the
Greenway.
cash contest, though, before we do go to break, Charch. It is the Fan. It is the Big Ten Conference, and they want to give you a chance to put $1,000 in your hand with the National Cash Contest. And it is the keyword green. Go to KFAN.com, enter the keyword green. You might win $1,000. The keyword is green.
Listening to KFAN.
Welcome back to the Friday Football Feast. While charging with you, Chad Greenway, Eric Nordquist. You and I have talked many times about the second coldest game or coldest game in Viking history. The epic matchup with the Seahawks.
Yep.
Blair Walsh missing from 27 yards.
That walk-off winner would have been so epic because of the weather and the situation, and Teddy Bridgewater, like the future of the organization. Like, just think about how that just in the next 6 months that changed.
We never know, but I know you are convinced, and I am convinced that was a special team. That team was going to go to Miami. Where next? I'm trying to remember where next.
It would never be Miami. The AFC, NFC works.
Oh, great point. Was it Carolina?
It was Carolina.
It was Carolina.
I think that was a Jared Allen-led Carolina Panthers. I'm pretty sure.
At that point, okay.
If I'm thinking about that right. Either way, it
was Carolina or Arizona, something like that.
It was one of the two.
East. We
felt really good about our football team, and Teddy was playing at another level.
Yeah.
Carolina goes to the Super Bowl that year, don't they?
Yep, exactly right. So that was when Jared was down there. So it was one of those situations where that Seattle football team was really good. And we found a way, that last drive by Teddy to get us down there for that kick. It was just a really, really good football game all the way around. And one of those deals where if we all want to talk about it, you make that kick. I mean, we have all the momentum, and we're a football team that's playing really good. And we get out of the weather, we go down south, which I think would have been fine for us and how we were operating that year. And
if Kyle Rudolph could have finished that run, and I'm not saying he should have, because I don't think it was like a breakable tackle, but just if he could have done something special, that would have done
he made the whole drive because he gets PI on Cam Chancellor, and then the next play is that 24, 25 yard catch and run that you're talking about. I mean, 27 yards. I mean, Kyle Rudolph. And as much as I love Rudy, he's never been a guy that broke 4 or 5 tackles in the midst anyway. But on that drive, that was Kyle's drive. That was Teddy waking up after an entire game of just getting pummeled by the Legion of Boom.
Yep.
And we did everything we needed to win that game.
Oh man, that one hurts. And that's why. So, for quick memories. Bud Grant's my favorite memory.
How about
there.
that? Him running onto the field in the short sleeve shirt.
So
yes,
I remember they call the captains to midfield before you kind of walk out to midfield. So you're at 50-yard line on your sideline, and I think it was Sendejo, myself. I can't remember who else was out there. Probably Rudy, I'm sure. And as far as captains go, and then I kind of hear the crowd start to go crazy.
So you didn't know?
I did. I'm kind of at the right at the sideline, and all of a sudden Bud comes from behind the sideline, and everybody saw because the camera was on Bud.
Yeah.
And I looked to my left, and Bud's there, at 88 some years old. I don't know what he was at that point. And the crowd just loses their collective minds.
They did.
Because Bud's in a I think it was a Viking short sleeve polo.
It was
correct.
A polo, yeah.
Yes.
And he just got off the golf links, in sunny July. And he walks out, and he didn't even look cold. He was just I'm like, what is this? And I walked out, and it's clearly my most memorable and favorable coin toss that I was ever able to be a part of. It was just an incredible moment to be out there with him at that point.
I didn't remember he was there for the coin toss. I remember him running into the middle of the field, but I didn't remember that he was there for the toss.
He walked from the sideline out with us as one of us. So I think we had 4 captains at that time, and then he kind of walked in the middle of us out to the 50-yard line for the coin toss. And it was one of those things where it was, not all coin tosses are equal. No. That was special. And it goes back to way back when we started to build a stadium, and I was just such a huge proponent of putting this thing outside and just letting everybody come. Back when we went to the Super Bowl every other year in the 70s, and you're going to make
that was a home field advantage.
We're going to get home field advantage, and you got to come see us in December and January, and it's not going to be good for you. And it was just that was really fun, and then that game was fun. I can remember the very first hit. I was kind of on the backside of a play. They had a running play away from me. And I thought the play was going to be outside, and I was just going to have to kind of keep flowing, and maybe eventually make the tackle if it was missed or whatever. But I had this backside cutback gap, and I kind of had to pause for a second in that gap to make sure the running back cleared, where he put his foot in the ground. I forget who it was. He put his foot in the ground and came right down that thing, and I was kind of not prepared for it, and he just caught me right in the mouth.
Oh,
and it
had to
felt
hurt.
So different than any other hit I've ever, and I'll never forget what that felt like, because the cold and the face mask and the helmet and everything was just different. And I made the tackle. He drugged me for a couple because I kind of bent over. He ran me over, and I held on. Was like, that didn't feel good. I was like, okay, we're here. Let's go. Now you're kind of you're in the game now.
Yeah.
But it felt different than any other hit.
What was the game time temp? Do you remember?
I thought it was.
Nardo, do you have it in front of you?
I thought it was -3.
I don't have it in front of me, but it was below 0 for sure.
I want to say -3 if I'm remembering that correctly.
Yeah,
single digits. Yeah, below 0 for sure.
The Kansas City game is gonna. It looks like at kickoff 7:00. It's going to be in the 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 degree range.
It's gonna be one of those clear nights where it's just bitterly cold and windy.
I suspect you're right.
Good for them.
It's the catch is going to be the wind.
Yep.
So it's going to be a relatively windy day, and it doesn't take much and we all know here, when it's 0 degrees, all you need is a 10 mile an hour wind.
Yeah.
And then it's cold.
Yep.
So the wind chill is expected to be
the ball handling,
20,
keeping the balls warm.
30.
I mean, from the quarterback, from the Chiefs' perspective. The Dolphins' perspective. I mean, everybody's going to be affected, and it's not like people like to think, well, the Chiefs have a bit advantage because no, they really don't. I mean, at the end of the day, you live there, but it doesn't get that seasonably cold in Kansas City.
No, that's a shock for everybody.
That's a shock for everybody involved. Yeah. So, it's not a massive advantage. Now, again, coming from Miami is a lot different if they're playing the Browns or somebody, it would be absolutely a coin toss. I mean,
correct.
But at this point with Miami coming up.
Did you guys do anything that week? Because, there's always
we practice outside.
Yeah, well, the Dolphins will, they'll go somewhere, or I don't know what they do.
Practice in a cooler?
Did they take ice baths? South Beach doesn't necessarily have the facilities.
But that's the whole idea of why it matters so much, the home field advantage. And this time of year, I think I always will lean on this in one of the negatives of turf is your grass field and your exterior conditions, weather conditions make football so much more fun.
Yeah.
And it's another interesting talking point. Now this week we're talking about, they have grass down there and they have this weather. Like, how's the grass going to hold up in the weather? Is it going to tear up? Is the grass dead underneath? Like, what's the footing going to be like? And then you have all this weather
bad is how it's going to be.
Because the ground's going to freeze.
That's
I'm sure, I don't know if it's a heated field where they have down there, but
I don't think I don't think Arrowhead's got
when you just control all those environments, you go in, love US Bank. Obviously it's an incredible stadium. But you control the weather conditions, and then you control the field conditions. I love that part of football. When I think back to high school football, when it's raining and it's a grass field and the grass is like 6 inches long, and you have all these things to factor in, I kind of like football that way.
Well, that's what you do is when like Bijan Robinson comes to town,
grow it.
Let the grass grow.
That's right.
Well, it's like the Soldier Field. It's the Soldier Field bit. It's like we're going to grow this grass longer for the teams who want to slow down, and we're used to playing on it at least weekly. And it's not like they practice on it, but they play on it weekly, and they're more comfortable with it. And
didn't impact Adrian a couple of times.
No, he went off.
Oh, he had some good games there.
There are tickets at Arrowhead going. I saw this online last night.
$68.
Correct, exactly. So
$68
eventually
to get in.
The fan base will embrace it, and years from now, because I think Kansas City's going to win this game. They'll talk about, man, were you there in the snowsuit for this game? But in the end, $68. Show up, guys.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Ridiculous.
I believe Tua is. I saw it go by Twitter, so I don't know this.
He's going to hand it off a lot, I bet.
Tua is 0-4 lifetime in games under 32.
Oh.
That's cute.
That's cute. This is going to be a little shock to the system here.
Yeah, I do think when you at the end of the day, Mahomes has a lot more experience, in these environments than Tua. Mm-hmm. And now he, again, like he's played a lot of playoff football where it may not be, negative or zero, but it's been in the 20s and 30s. I don't know what his record is in that moment, but he's been in a lot more of those games. So, it's going to be a massive factor. I would be shocked if any of the games this weekend, aside from maybe that Tampa game, this would be the biggest upset, in my opinion, for the Dolphins.
To go into
Kansas City.
Degrees.
Yeah, I think that's...
well, the line would suggest otherwise. Your most lopsided line is Pittsburgh heading to Buffalo.
Yeah,
that's a 10-point game. This one is only 4.5 points.
You look at that Pittsburgh team and you just say, of course, Vegas is smarter than all of us, right? But I do find it hard to believe that Tomlin coach team's going to go in there and not give them a battle. I know how he coaches. I know how he can motivate. I know how I know they don't have a lot of weapons, especially with TJ Watt, losing him. But Tomlin finds a way to motivate and to get teams prepared, and they're a very well seasoned playoff teams. A lot of guys on that roster have played in playoff games.
There are a lot of people just looking at Mason Rudolph versus Josh Allen.
Yep.
It's a little more complicated than that.
And Josh Allen, though, does have a tendency to throw the ball to the other team. So if you can find a way to turn him over at their place, that's going to be, at the end of the day, it's playoff football. It's going to come down to third downs and come down to turnovers. It's what every playoff game comes down to.
That's the other weather game. This one isn't cold. This one's snow. Talk to me about great snow games. You were there for the Ravens game with Cordero Patterson.
Yep. That was probably the best snow game I had, other than some just flurries. But that was a legit fun where you couldn't see the first down. The Ravens the first down of the game for the Ravens they were like a yard short, easy.
They called
the refs was like, let's go.
Good enough.
That was first of all one of the craziest games in NFL history, not even Viking history.
Right, pure insanity.
It was like the last 2.5 minutes.
Yes.
It was like 40 points scored or something ridiculous. And we just found a creative way to lose that game on a couple penalties on that last stretch. Just brutal. But that was a wild game. That was sort of like the Bills game from last year, where like you used to know how this thing was going to end, and it was just the story kept. Every page was like a different plot. And
you thought you had just seen the finishing blow 30 seconds ago, but here's the new finishing blow, and then there's another one coming.
Yeah, and in that game, I'll never forget. I the snow obviously, but in the second half, I remember Flacco got out and he ended up on like a 30-yard run. Oh. Flacco, and I'm like, I remember trying to, the footing was so bad. I remember trying to turn. And I had it was like turning like a RV, and I couldn't catch Flacco. I'm like, what is happening?
Joe Flacco.
Somebody pull that clip up and put it on Twitter so I can be embarrassed today.
That year was different than 2023, but in some veins, like if you remember, you had that Bears game early on where Martellus Bennett walks off on you guys.
Yep.
You had the Cleveland Browns game. I think it was Jordan Cameron, the tight end.
Yes.
Like it was a story of late touchdowns and close losses where you had put yourselves in a spot to win, and sadly you couldn't get it done. And that's kind of the frame of the 2023 with the Vikings as well, putting themselves in spots and not figuring out how to finish the deal.
Yeah, I think you look at the Browns one specifically. It's like I can remember thinking, like, being a fan, like, I need to follow another team. This sucks. Like, how do they find a way to lose that game?
I know.
And I was on the field. It sucked.
You're one of them.
Yeah, it's really. I was on the defense. They gave it up.
Right.
Not fun.
No, not fun. It feels like, to me, fantasy. Putting on my fantasy cap for a second. The really, really cold games.
I didn't see you take it off.
When it gets,
You never take it off.
No.
The Vikings game in 2015, though, was 6 below, thanks to the texter, a 507 number.
Thank you very much.
25 below wind chill.
Correct. So the wind chill might be about the same in
Third
Kansas City
ever.
as what you got.
Wow.
Cold games, if it's cold enough, scoring goes way, way, way down. Like your game with Seattle, final score was whatever, 17-14 or what?
It was 10-9.
10-9, there you go. 10-9, even worse.
Yuck.
Snow, though, I think a lot of times offense has the advantage, right? So receivers running a route, receivers planting, knows where to plant.
Yep.
Quarterback knows where that plant's going to be. You're not going to plant on a dime like you normally would.
Yeah, the reactionary players have a harder time.
The defense has to react to that on a snowy field. I think
it comes down to ball handling, though. When the footballs get wet and they're constantly slacking those things out and using a bunch of footballs to keep them dry and doing all those things, but then all of a sudden, like, you get on a first down and you hand the ball off and he gets tackled and the ball gets just torched with snow.
Yeah.
And you want to go to a quick second down pass. It's like, well, that ball is the same football. And that's why I forget who was the glove. Oh, it was who used the glove? Kurt Warner used the gloves.
Okay.
Teddy used the gloves. And sometimes the leather gloves on a wet ball actually make it stickier, where the plastic gloves make it really slippery. So it'd be interesting to see in those cold weather, the snowy games, if anybody uses that. I know Josh Allen's got the famously large hands, so maybe he doesn't need something like that.
Well, there was a funny quote from Ezekiel Elliott, I think, from this last weekend, because they had that snow game against the Jets, and he's like, my whole life I wanted to play in a snow game. And then he did, and he's like, it sucks.
Yeah.
right.
It's only fun for those watching. Yeah.
Man, I played so much snow football
the best.
Every day all winter, out in the backyard or out in the outlot playing snow football with friends.
You're wearing your
moon boots.
Yeah, wearing your moon boots. You have your snow pants on.
Yes.
And you got your starter jacket probably back in the day.
Yep.
Yeah, you might be even too old for that.
Oh, and you're trying to throw like Lawrence Taylor style tackles on people in the snowbanks.
It doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt when you land.
At all.
No, that's where we would switch from touch to tackle.
Yeah,
would be in the snow. Play tackle football. So you can.
It doesn't hurt when you land.
Nobody's moving very fast
until the ground's really frozen. Then it sucks.
You get a guy on the ground though, you have to accidentally get snow in his face mask, right? I mean, the whitewash factor is in play.
Yeah, that just makes a miserable situation somehow worse.
All right, last one for you. I've already kept it long. Bill Belichick, free agent coach. Would you want today, if you were a player today, would you want Bill Belichick as your head coach?
First of all, has he said he wants to coach again?
He's inferred it. I'm really excited about my next chapter. He's saying things like that.
I haven't seen the quotes. I was curious about that. I thought maybe he would just walk it off and be done as one of the, if not the greatest coach of all time.
He said he's moving on. That's what he said.
Can I know he will get, if he wants to get work, he's going to get work. No question about that. Probably whatever one he wants. I think his approach. I think his approach is similar to what maybe Dan Campbell's like the new age version of Bill Belichick is how I kind of see him. Is like obviously Dan played, so that automatically when you can play and you're a player and you can coach, the ultimate respect to that locker room because they know you've been there and done that. They know when it's a Thursday practice in week 10, he knows the grind and he does a good job of communicating how hard it is, but yet to also not let them off the hook for that. I don't know that. I think Bill's approach is the old school is going to be a harder sell. Mm-hmm. I really do, and
I don't know if it works.
And I think Campbell. I think if I would think about how I would like to get coached, I would much rather play for a guy like Campbell than Belichick because he's a toughness guy. Mm-hmm. He's a guy who's going to make his team tough. They're going to play tough. They're going to do the hard things. No. You're not going to cut a corner. You're not going to take things easy. We're not going to have a Wednesday off and we're going to do a foo-foo walkthrough. Like, we're going to do it the hard way and the right way. But I'm also going to acknowledge the work and I'm going to love you up for it. And that's what he's done. And that's what locker rooms relate to.
Okay.
They want to know. That
all sounds good. Until
they want to know that you have their back when things are hard, right? And you're going to celebrate them when things are good.
Then in week 18, you play all your starters all game because you're a tough guy.
Didn't work out.
And then you lose Sam Laporta, and you got a bevy of injuries.
That Hawkeye's going to play. Come on. We know that Hawkeye's going to play. Let's be honest with ourselves.
He's awesome.
Iowa City's a little different breed. He'll play.
Hyperextended knees?
He'll play, and he'll play well.
Okay.
All right. We just find a way.
Laporta is absolutely.
So, you're no.
He's a Hawkeye. Nord. Come on.
I don't care about that part.
Yes, you do.
You were a linebacker, middle of your career, head coach opening.
Yep.
You're a no on bringing Belichick.
I have to know the other options.
It's all the other options in any given year.
But that's just like a fruit basket upset.
Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Despite the fact you'd rather.
Wait, do I get a quarterback too?
Well, if you need a new head coach, you probably need a quarterback too. I think it's because
that's the next talking point of his success, right? Is he didn't have a lot of success before Tom, and he didn't have any success after Tom.
You can basically draw a line in his career at when he took over the GM duties in addition to being a head coach.
Got it.
As if those two jobs aren't demanding enough.
Yuck.
He tried to do both, and he ran the personnel into the ground.
Who do you hate more, GM Bill Belichick or Rams GM Les Snead?
There's no worse GM, like history of league, longer run than Bill Belichick.
Wow.
So bad. Get this. Since he's taken over, this went by my Twitter feed as well. I'm going to assume it's correct. Since he's taken over as GM.
That's not a good thought process, by the way. That Twitter is, you should just assume that that's correct, but okay, go ahead.
Roughly 10 years. They haven't re-signed to a second contract any first round pick, second round pick, or third round pick in his tenure.
That's crazy.
Think about
it's
how
almost
bad you're
impossible.
Drafting. Yes.
So, you just wonder what made that decision. Was it he came in and said, I need more control? Or was nobody going to work with him and Kraft knew that he couldn't fire him?
Yeah.
So it's one of those situations because as a GM coming in, would you want to be in that position where you essentially you're a puppet?
Belichick went on a power grab because he could. He was coming out of a Super Bowl. He's got all the equity. Scott Pioli goes to the Chiefs, I think is where the opening came.
Yep.
And then he power grabbed that spot. So everything has to run through him.
But if you're him, wouldn't you do that?
No. I would understand that they're two different jobs and he has no skill set to be a GM.
Clearly he didn't understand that.
No, that's a terrible decision.
Yeah.
Terrible decision. Anyway, thank you for coming in.
Absolutely.
Anything going on with Grey Duck that we should know about for the weekend?
No. My other venture I'll talk about real quick is my MN Score Feed app. So high school sports, winter sports, hockey, hoops is going crazy right now. Mm-hmm. We just did a bunch of updates to our MN Score Feed app. I've been a part of that for 4 years now.
Yeah.
It is taking off like crazy.
It's a great success
hundreds
story.
of thousands of users now across the Midwest.
Remind people what it does.
So it's the go-to app for high school sports. Schedules, rosters, connecting the community. So we just did a massive update. So if you already have it, go back and update it. It's got some really cool new features on kind of connecting the community. We have a star rating now for your community to see how good your community is on our Scorefeed app. You can see the biggest thing I think is our live stream links. So every game that's scheduled, like tonight for basketball, has the live stream link embedded into it. So you can click on it, watch the game. If you don't want to go out in the weather tonight, or maybe you got a grandkid playing, across the state. That's been, love high school sports. My most favorite memories of all time are high school sports. So to be a part of it and kind of elevate it has been really fun. So if you don't have it, get it. If you have it, get the update. So
MN Sports.
MN Score Feed.
Thank you.
And
MN Score Feed.
Free app. Go grab it.
Thank you. When we come back, and by the way, later in the show, I should mention, Dave Sinekin's going to come in. We'll talk about the impending Packer loss, probable loss. Not necessarily, but we think that's going to be the case. A bunch of jobs, NFL coaching jobs, including one of them filled. I don't know if you know this, Chad. Patriots have already replaced Bill Belichick.
Gerard Mayo.
A player coach. You were just saying how you love having a player coach? Gerard Mayo, linebacker.
No way.
Why would you put a linebacker in that position? To be a head coach, I don't understand.
Yeah, you talking about D'Amico Ryan's success down in Houston?
He's been great.
He's been excellent. Gerard Mayo was an excellent player.
He was a good player.
I know he jumped right into coaching. Great human being as well. That's hired. That's done.
That's done.
Wow.
Day later. So obviously they knew.
They had a plan and strategy.
It's been in the they've known for weeks or months or who knows, maybe longer.
Was that just breaking or that happened?
Yeah, that happened about an hour ago.
Got it.
Yeah. So Gerard Mayo, your new head coach for the
Unreal.
Patriots.
Great hire.
I like it if a team knows they've got an internal candidate that they're just set on.
Just move.
Just, let's just take the silliness out of this. Let's just, if you've got your guy, let's just go do it.
Heck yeah.
All right. Thank you for coming in.
You bet. Thanks for having me, man.
Great to see you. We'll see you next Friday, I hope. We'll have a whole new round of playoffs to talk about.
Oh, yeah.
That'll be great. All right. Yeah. When we come back, what do we have when we come back? It's
Vikes Bites, huh?
Vikes Bites. When we come
KFAN, the Fan.
Vikes Bites.
Welcome back, 9 to noon. It is time for Vikes Bites, which is brought to you by Thousand Hills Lifetime Grazed. You can go to thousandhillslifetimegraze.com, learn more about their efforts via regenerative agriculture to bring you elite meat. And by the way, supporting local, Clearwater, Minnesota's finest is where it began. They've now expanded. They're all over the place, like 500,000 acres that they've been able to work with. And again, the product itself is unbelievable. So get to Lifetime Grazed, grass-fed, thousandhillslifetimegrazed.com. I want to start here with you, Charch.
Yes, sir.
There's a lot of conversation regarding free agents and the what's next conversation. And 9 to noon, that's kind of how we'll frame it up and continue to look at these things as free agency approaches, how it impacts the draft. You get all that. This is not new. Here's some audio from KJ Osborne talking about working through different quarterbacks over the course of the second half of the season.
What's different when you have a different quarterback is, with Kirk, I understand what he likes. I know where he wants us to be and stuff like that. Where we're having different quarterbacks, it's different. So you try to get that during the week, and then when you kind of get those live bullets on the field, then you can kind of feel that. So it was definitely a process, but something we kind of got used to.
Got used to it in some ways, productivity-wise, maybe not always on the same page with the backups. Here he is talking about now entering the free agent market. This will be the first time in his career.
I'm extremely excited. I've worked my whole life to be able to do something really great for my family. At the end of the day, I'm in the NFL and I'm blessed. I'm very grateful for the position that I'm in, and I'm excited for it.
Yeah, this will be, every NFL player wants to get to their second contract, right? The second one's when you get paid.
Yeah.
Real money. Life-changing or wife-changing money in your second contract. The first one is generally good. Although for a lot of players, if you weren't taken in the first round, that money, you take out taxes, whatever, it's, it does not change your life. The second one does. KJ's got the opportunity to probably be, I'm guessing KJ will be something like the 15th best veteran free agent.
And that's what I'm curious about because, and part of it's circumstance, mentioning that's why I played the audio on the backup QBs and just kind of adjusting to them, as we saw significant drop-offs, 48 catches, the 540 in yardage, and then 3 touchdowns. Mm-hmm. All 3 of those numbers noticeably lower than the previous 2 seasons. So, combination of Jordan Addison coming into the league, totally get that. Mm-hmm. The domination and targets and access that the TJ Hawkinson was going to get as a premier option in the offense. But in the end, we saw, first of all, Dobbs basically made him miss a week with the concussion that he got in the Atlanta game. And then you have the situation where we saw drops. I believe we saw a game where he wasn't even targeted throughout. So the second half of the season, very, very troublesome and problematic from a productivity standpoint for KJ. And now entering free agency, is he a guy, maybe call it cap casualty? I've liked KJ a lot. I think he's great. He's been awesome on this team and a part of the mix and a great dude. Do you see him coming back? Any thoughts on KJ as you lay awake at night?
I just pulled up my friend Mike Clay from ESPN's got he's already listed in order all the free agents at every position. He's got KJ Osborne as the 13th best wide receiver. So I guess 15th-ish roughly. I think that's going to be his ballpark.
Okay.
There's a strata of guys that are going to be way more expensive and frankly are better than him. T. Higgins is coming up. Mike Evans is coming up. Michael Pittman, Calvin Ridley, Marquise Brown. He might be in the next tier of guys, and he'll have some suitors. Teams that want to get better, especially in the slot, which is primarily where KJ runs from. I think the reality for the Vikings is a team that is likely to be stressed at the cap, near the cap, when they try to redo Kirk, which is probable, not certain. Justin Jefferson, Daniil Hunter, Darasaw's coming up soon. Whatever. All the money this team's going to have to put on critical players at critical positions. I don't think we're going to have the luxury of even the modest mid-tier salary that KJ's going to have. I think they'll probably end up replacing the position just out of cap need and find somebody who's playing at a minimum price to be your slot wide receiver.
It could be Brandon Powell, right? It could be somebody like that.
And Brent, also, by the way, a free agent. If I'm correct about that, I think given what Brandon Powell can do on special teams, I might even prioritize Brandon Powell and move him into the slot. And you'll have to pay him even less than KJ Osborne, and maybe quite a bit less. And so, yeah, I think I might lean that way for this team. And the other part of it is, think of the pecking order. So you go as your Kirk Cousins and you drop back to pass. Justin Jefferson.
Okay.
TJ Hawkinson.
Sweet.
Jordan Addison.
Love it.
At best, KJ Osborne, as you bring him back, do you want to put money into your fourth receiving option?
Yeah, even if it was, Christian Kirk kind of he was the most recent one to break the mold with that nearly $20 million a year deal. Pay even $3 or $4 million. I don't know if I want to invest that cash in that spot.
I don't think so.
Oof. All right, well, we love you, KJ, and wherever you end up, maybe it's still here. Who knows? But that's a lot of cash.
Yeah, we take him if the price is right, but I don't think the price will be right. I think KJ's going to go take care of his family. He's going to take the most money he can get, which most players do in their second contract, and God bless him.
Speaking of free agent situations and just guys that maybe we forgot about, as you were, you've written many odes and sonnets in the name of Ty Chandler.
I have
over the course of the 2023 season.
Yep.
I don't know if and maybe it would be via the legal department with the Vikings that the restraining order has officially been put in place so that you must stay 500 yards away from said Chandler. What about Cam Akers? So Cam Akers, we had Kwesi in studio yesterday.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, we had Kwesi at the facility.
He was here. You were there.
Yeah, at the facility.
Okay.
Yeah, no,
gotcha.
we go to Kwesi. Kwesi does not come to us. But we chatted with the GM, and it popped in my head the Cam Akers. So we're thinking about Kirk and the Achilles, which I think we should be. But also Cam Akers. What's up with Cam? And if he's healthy and able to come back, given how awful this run game is, would you give Cam Akers a shot in the pecking order of running backs?
Refresh my memory on his injury.
That was an Achilles.
Yeah, no, out. Out.
But that's his...
it's second Achilles? Look, nobody comes back from the first Achilles very well at the running back position. Not talking about quarterback position.
There's always got to be a first.
I'm not... Yeah, that's not a... And no fault to Cam Akers, obviously. Horrific that he's gone through this now 2 times. But
pass blocking, smooth running ability, that's just, it doesn't do it for you.
Nope.
It's all Ty.
No, it doesn't have to be Ty. I thought if I'm realistic about it, so 2 things went into my Ty Chandler love. So let's be clear. Rewind the tape to summer, when I'm pounding the table for Ty Chandler to just have a fair crack at winning the starting job. That's all I wanted.
That's all you wanted.
That's all I wanted. It was a 2-part discussion. One was, I didn't feel like Alexander Mattison was requisite of the job. And Ty Chandler, Ty Chandler, B, had some burst, wiggle, and other things that we just don't get out of Madison. So my feeling was, let's let this thing be an open competition all summer and may the best man win. It took us until Madison could not play in Week 15 to get Ty on the field. So how did Ty perform? He was better by about half a yard per carry. He had a way higher explosive run rate than Madison did. A lot of people, I know all the listeners right now are going, well, you can't pass block. Well, he had an 88% pass block proficiency level. It wasn't a disaster. It was not good, and he has room to get better. But, if you don't play, it's hard to get better at pass blocking. So I still feel like Chandler can be, but is not necessarily the lead back for this team next year. I don't think he produced a mandate to go be the starter next year. Ty Chandler did, but I don't think Madison's on this team.
I mean, everybody loves JJ, and they should. everyone loves the highlight catches. I saw something, I think, since 2019, and he was drafted in 2020, but since 2019, he has the most 20-plus yard receptions in the NFL. It's just, we are watching pure greatness every single moment that he's on the field. If we can't run the ball, this offense can never be considered elite, in my opinion. And now we have 2 years of watching almost just an intentional avoidance of the run game. So at what point, because, there are certain teams where Nick Chubb goes down in Cleveland, they figure out how to make Jerome Ford a guy that people are starting in their fantasy football championships. You have the Baltimore Ravens, who, whether it's Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins, feels like he hasn't been healthy yet in his entire career. They figure out, they had that the young cat, and he ended up getting hurt too. Achilles and knee injuries for the Baltimore Ravens running back seems like a yearly tradition, which is unfortunate.
Absolutely.
And now Dalvin Cook's there. So and Dalvin, now we'll see him in 2 weeks after the bye. He'll probably run for $150 and a touchdown. Who knows?
Dalvin Cook?
Dalvin Cook. No, he's cooked. I get it, Charch. My point is certain teams just run the ball. And it doesn't matter who it is. They figure out how to run the ball. Pete Carroll's up in Seattle with the Charbonnet cat, trying to figure that out because Kenneth Walker's always nicked up every other game. So it can't just be Ty Chandler and Alexander Madison aren't good enough to be productive runners. Ty Chandler's better than Alexander Madison, I agree with you. But in the end, there is something else that is fundamentally wrong that limits this run game, that limits this offense.
Well, how about run
blocking?
Puts
them in positions to lose games.
The run blocking's not good enough. There were too many runs where Barry Sanders would have sat on a negative TFL.
Well, he had a couple of negative games once in a while. That was kind of his bit.
Now, the running back position is extraordinarily deep in veterans. All right, I'm going to give you a series of names. You give me a yes, no, and if you want the Vikings, if you want this guy and the contract, whatever contract he's going to get, these are not going to be big contracts. Nobody wants veteran running backs right now.
Can I do this and I'm also going to dismiss the obvious cap issues and various depth and related things. Just veteran running backs.
Do you want this guy?
Yeah.
And knowing that veteran running backs don't cost that much anymore because nobody wants a 27-year-old running back anymore.
Right.
Saquon Barkley. Yes, no?
Yes, I would take him.
Josh Jacobs.
Can he catch? I don't know about his catch.
He can a little. Not like Barkley. Barkley's a wizard.
No, because I think he's a reps guy. I think you're going to have to give it to him 25 times a game for him to bust out.
Austin Eckler.
What the hell happened with him this season? Touchdown machine.
Oh, yeah. Thing fell off the table.
Austin Eckler in this offense, if we were actually dedicated to running screens and short passes and were proficient in it, Austin Eckler would be sweet on this team.
Derrick Henry.
No. Lack of.
He needs big holes to run through. His whole thing is, you want to give him a 10-yard running. He lines up way, way behind the quarterback.
Oh, it's no different than Adrian, right?
Get him up and running. Yeah.
7 yards on the dot and just let him mash into that line.
That's not our offensive line.
No, it's not.
DeAndre Swift, your leading running back for the Eagles.
He started out. He's kind of come back a little bit though. I'm out on DeAndre.
Who was the opponent for his best game of the year?
Wow, it was the Minnesota Vikings. What was it? 160, something like that? Ridiculous.
Tony Pollard. Dallas running back.
I think they'd have to say he was a massive disappointment this year, being the lead horse.
Get this on Tony Pollard. Fewer yards, rushing yards, receiving yards, and a lower yards per carry this year, and lower touchdown totals this year, without Ezekiel Elliott there. He was part 2 of a 1-2 punch last year in Dallas, and he had better numbers than he did this year.
They needed to keep Zeke.
As the lead back for one of the great offenses in the NFL.
They needed to keep Zeke.
Speaking of Zeke, that'll be the last name I'll give you. You want Zeke as your starting running back next year. Minnesota Vikings.
I haven't watched him at all this year. He's got no punch. His bit is you know why we get Zeke? Here's why we get Zeke. Because then we can finally score rushing touchdowns at the 1 yard line. Because we will with Ezekiel Elliott, because all he does is fall forward. So yes, for the sake of finally solving this apparent eternal issue that this team has, just moving the ball forward a freaking yard.
Yeah.
No more tush pushes or whatever awful incarnation of it that the Vikings foisted upon us in several situations this year. Get Ezekiel Elliott so we can gain a freaking yard and stop playing around with it.
All right, there you go.
That's Vikes Bites brought to you by Thousand Hills. Lifetime grazed, grass-fed beef, Thousand Hills. Lifetimegrazed.com, Charch.
At what point do we have Dave Sinekin coming in? I think he's
10:35.
10:35. We'll recap Packers at various times over the course of the show. We need to talk about all the playoff games. We have one of the great weekends in football.
I think we should start that next.
Let's do it. We got 6 epic playoff games.